Hello there, and welcome to today's show. Today, we're going to be talking about reclaiming your energy after breast cancer. And this is by far one of the biggest struggles that I hear, that I dealt with, that all of my clients have dealt with, but also the hundreds of breast cancer survivors that I speak with. This is by far one of our biggest challenges. So I really hope that you'll come in and hang out with me for today's episode. We're going to be talking about something that most doctors are not talking about, but it's something that's going to help you understand why you might be more tired after treatment has ended than you were going through it. So we're going to be talking about that because I know that my doctors for sure did not talk about it. I'm going to be talking about why this does not have to be how life feels from this moment on. And it doesn't, and I promise you that. Plus, I'm going to be sharing how you can easily avoid the 3 biggest mistakes that most survivors are making that are huge energy zappers. Before I dive into that, I want you to know that after treatment for me, I felt like I've been hit by a ton of bricks. I experienced, and perhaps you can relate, a bone aching exhaustion that I had never felt before. I struggled to get out of bed, let alone put actual clothes on. I think for almost 2 years, pajamas were on my wardrobe. I had 7 surgeries in 2 years, and I felt like I was always recovering from something. But after those surgeries, after that treatment was done, I was more tired than I'd been going through them. And I can remember thinking, what on earth is wrong with me? Not only did I think that, but I actually did a Google search for it. You may have as well, right? And I headed off down that Google rabbit hole, that crazy one that's got warrens and twists and turns all over the place, because I couldn't wrap my head around the fact of what I saw on social media, what I saw on pictures at my oncologist's office, were people happy and excited to be done with treatment, ringing the bell, holding balloons, huge smiles on their faces, celebrating that they were done with treatment. But this was literally a million miles away from what I was feeling, and perhaps what you're feeling too. And I was so confused because what I was seeing out there was not what I was feeling in here. And I'm sharing this with you because you might be feeling this way too. And if you're feeling drained and like your energy is completely being zapped away, leaving you exhausted and utterly depleted, I want you to know that you're not alone. And I totally get it. Totally get it. So as a breast cancer survivor myself, I discovered through my own experience, conversations with hundreds of survivors, and now years of research, that it's common to experience this, but we're rarely prepared for it, right? I know I certainly wasn't. And I want you to know that it does not have to be your new normal, even when your doctors are telling you that it's normal to feel this way. Mine did too. Mine did too. Now, what your doctors aren't talking about, what other people are not talking about, is the fact that you and I have been through a traumatic experience, right? As soon as we hear those spine-chilling words, you have breast cancer, our lives are changed forever. We are changed forever. And what happens is we actually go into survival mode, like literally, and we stay in fight and flight are the common survival modes that we hear about, right? But there's also 2 more, which are freeze and fawn. And we stay in these fight and flight and freeze and fawn survival modes our whole way through treatment. And often longer if we don't know how to get out of survival mode. And you might be wondering, right, how you can even recognize that you're stuck in survival mode. So I'm going to go through a few ways, and I'm going to invite you to look at these ways with curiosity, with observation, but without judgment. Okay, because if you don't realize that this is how you've been living, especially since breast cancer, what I realized was I've been living this way my whole entire life since something happened to me at 8 years old. And so all of the things that I do, that I teach as a coach, are to help you get out of this survival mode. So how do we know if we're in survival mode? Here are just a few ways that you might recognize. If you feel like you're trying to control everything and everyone, you're like, oh no, you should do it this way, or if you tried this way, or if you're somebody that feels like you need to plan every eventuality to like 15 steps out, then you might be somebody that's trying to control everything, almost like a conductor with an orchestra, right? It's often a sign that we're in survival mode because we're trying to hang on. We're trying to hang on to what we can control, which, by the way, is very little, and it's much less than you are currently trying to control. And so therefore it's less exhausting, right? When we know that. So that's one. Again, we're not judging here. I don't want to call you a control freak because you're likely not. You're more than likely stuck in survival mode. Another thing that you might notice is you might be more irritable than normal, less patient, where you're kind of snapping at your nearest and dearest and then feeling really rotten afterwards, right? Regretful that you've snapped and it really shouldn't have been a big deal. That can be, again, that sensation that you're living on the edge, that you're just like hanging on. I think of it that way, like you're barely hanging on. It's often a sign that you're in survival mode. You might have anxiety, feeling on edge constantly, with the slightest thing making your heart beat faster and faster and faster. You might notice that your hot flashes get worse as your heart beats faster. You might notice that you're feeling more exhausted because your heart's beating faster. Another sign that you could be in survival mode. You might be procrastinating. Such a common one that I hear. Probably beating yourself up for it too, right? Knowing that you need to make some lifestyle changes, but you're not doing it. You're just procrastinating on it. And you're like, why? Why am I not doing the things I know I ought to be doing? Often because we're stuck in survival mode. You might be isolating. This was a big one for me when I realized how much I was still living in survival mode. Isolating. I used to hide away in the bedroom, right? Snuggle up into my favorite blanket, have a good cup of tea. I have to just share this with you because it was so cool. I love, first of all, I'm a tea fanatic, but I love a cup of tea where it gives you like a little message. It's like a fortune cookie, right? And this one I need to share with you because it was so special to see this one today. And it says, be the person you were meant to be. You're not meant to be stuck in survival mode. You're meant to be thriving. Survival mode is literally exhausting. So if you notice that you just have a tendency to want to hide away because it feels too people-y out there, right? It's like, no, I just want to, it could be that you're stuck in survival mode. Another one that people don't realize often is an automatic response to being in survival mode is that you're focusing on others, right? Thinking that you can make everybody else happy and then you'll be happy. Plus, it can also be where you're putting on that fake smile because you don't want anybody to worry about you, but inside, you're exhausted and worn out and stressed out. If you're wondering, who am I now? It can be that lack of identity, right? We change, like I said, when we go through something like breast cancer. It could be a sign that you are stuck in survival mode. And things like having a hard time saying no, right? Even if you're completely exhausted, even if you don't want to do something, but you feel obliged to say yes all the time. So if you're saying yes to any of these, you'll massively benefit from the class that I'm going to be sharing below. Okay? Because what happens is And you can see the details for the class at the bottom of the screen. But what happens to our body and mind when we hear those words, see you in 3 months? Our body feels safer than we've been feeling going through treatment. And so our body is now like, oh, okay, now we can feel it all. Now we can feel all the exhaustion. Now we can feel all the emotion, right? It's like when we're going through treatment, we're almost like this, literally fighting, and that's the language that we use around cancer, right? Fight cancer, be strong, be a warrior. And so we're literally in this fight mode. And then when we hear those words, I'll see you in 3 months, whether it's from a surgeon or an oncologist or a radiologist or whomever in your medical team, we likely feel this surge, this massive surge, this wave of exhaustion, emotion, like crying at the drop of a hat, hot flashes galore, exhaustion, all of the things. Because our body now feels safe enough for us to feel it. It feels that we can let down the guard a little bit. Now, I want you to think about any time that you've been in an emergency situation. And I remember when I think about this, there's always one thing that comes to mind, even though I've been in many emergency situations in my life. But I am somebody that is really good in an emergency. Like, I go into action. Like, I think clearly, I know the steps. And I think part of the reason for this is because I know survival mode. Like, my body intuitively knows what to do when we are in that mode because I've been there a lot. Right. So I remember this instance where my daughter was super young. My son wasn't even born yet. And we were living in New Jersey. And I get a phone call from a friend of mine down the street who had just had her second baby. And she was in tears and she was screaming, "Karin, I'm bleeding and I can't stop." And I said to her, "I'm coming." I didn't think about it. I didn't think about anything. I just said, "I'm coming." So thankfully, my next door neighbor was home to take care of my daughter, got her situated. I get the car. I put a ton of towels in the car. And I'm just like, the hospital wasn't far, thankfully. And so that was both of our thinking that we would get there quicker than an ambulance would get to her. So I get her in the car. We kind of wrap her up with all of these towels. And I get her into the emergency room. And with her all the time, we'd called her husband. We got her other daughter situated with my neighbor as well. And it was like boom, 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 boom. Like, we got all of these things taken care of. And we got her tests. We got all of this stuff done. And it was to do with the birth, and it was to do with some placenta that hadn't dropped and all of these things. But what I want to bring to your attention here is how I felt after that situation. When I was in it, I was not emotional. When I was in it, I was clear thinking, and I had a focus. And this is what I want you to think about. If you've been through any kind of emergency situation, it was clear. I knew what I had to do. And I feel that so often that's what we do when we're going through breast cancer. It's like, okay, pull up your big girl panties, do what you have to do, and get to the other side. But what happened to me after my friend had been through that and her husband had arrived and everything was okay, I get to my car in the parking lot, and what happened? I started shaking. I was sobbing from my gut. I felt absolutely drained and exhausted because I knew she was safe. The emergency was over. I didn't choose that. That was how my body reacted. And that's exactly what happens to us when we hear those words, "I'll see you in 3 months." Or we finally go, "Oh, I guess I'm safe enough now to let go a little bit so that I'm not having to fight so hard." Now, why our doctors don't prepare us for this, I'm not sure. I really don't know. But I will tell you that it fuels my reason to make sure that you get to learn why you feel this way and what you can do about it. Because here's the thing, right? It helps to understand. I always like to know why I'm feeling a certain way. But I also want to know, how do I solve the problem? What do I do about it? And I found hope through the strategies that I'm going to be sharing with you in the class that you can see at the bottom of this page. And I want to pass that hope onto you. That's why I'm thrilled to invite you to our upcoming complimentary class, How to Get Your Energy and Life Back in 2024. Okay? It's a 60-minute online class. It's live. We're in a Zoom room, which means that you get to pick my brain. I cannot, and I don't mean this in a conceited way, guys, but we have a saying in my group coaching program, Thrivership School, that is that we are not crockpots. What does that mean? It means we don't stew on things, right? So what happens when you are in a room with me and have the opportunity to pick my brain, you don't stew anymore. And stewing is one of the ways that our energy gets drained, right? Because where our mind goes, our energy flows. So in 60 minutes, I am going to help you get your energy back. Okay. We're going to be talking about the 3 common mistakes that survivors often make after treatment. Mistakes that could be draining your energy every single day. And I want you to imagine the relief of finally understanding why you feel the way you do, and more importantly, discovering what you can do about it, right? Because it's okay to say, okay, now I understand why I'm so bone achingly exhausted. But Karin, what do I do about it? I don't hold back. I share the good, the bad, and the ugly of how I have navigated this roller coaster ride that is life after treatment. And I share everything that I have learned to shortcut your painful parts. Because I want to hold your hand and I want to bring with you what it feels like to get that instant relief from feeling so overwhelmed, right? By learning the right way to focus your time and energy so that you can feel calm and confident in your journey towards great health, vitality, joy. So that's the second thing we're going to be talking about in that class. And the third thing I'm going to be sharing with you is a roadmap to navigate life after treatment, to help you rediscover who you are today, clarify what you want in your life, and how to use this experience to inspire and uplift others, just like I'm doing with you. Many of my students love to pay it forward. They know that they went through this journey for a reason. We don't always know why, but they want to take it and pay it forward. And so I'm going to be also sharing that with you in this class. Now, I don't know about you, but I felt massive relief when I knew what my treatment plan was going to be. Did you? Again, it wasn't that I was happy about it. It wasn't that I was looking forward to it, but I felt a relief. It's like, okay, now I know what I have to do. And it's the same when I hand you that roadmap to help you navigate life after treatment. It's a relief. It's like, okay, all right, good. Now I know what I get to do, especially as you figure out who you are and what you want. These are big things that can happen after we've been through trauma. And so when you join us, you're all going to witness that transformation, that same transformation in your own life. And I want you to picture waking up each morning feeling refreshed. I mean, when was the last time that you felt that, right? Ready to tackle the day ahead. Because this is the kind of transformation that we're talking about. And you and I both know that heart-bursting feeling, right? That immense amount of joy and gratitude that you get to feel when you get to have the energy, right? To dance around the living room or play with your dog or run around with your grandkids at the park. These are memories that get to be imprinted in our mind, in our soul, in our hearts. And I don't want fatigue to hold you back from living your best life, full of those moments. Because isn't that why you fought to be here? I know it's part of why I fought. And to get to live a life that's not defined by a diagnosis. So I invite you to take the first step towards reclaiming your energy and your life and say goodbye to energy zappers for good. Wherever you're watching this video, you will see that there is a link to register for the class. It's free, totally free. If the time or the day doesn't work for you, don't worry about it. I've got you covered. I know that, especially with our energy, right? It's hard sometimes to join a class, especially in the evening. I try to make my classes so they'll work for different time zones across the world. But register anyway. I'll be sending out a replay so that you won't miss out on the thing. So just make sure that you're saving your spot. Like I said, you'll see somewhere around your video, it could be up, it could be down, it could be next to, depending on where you're watching this. You'll see some writing that says to register for the class, click here. And there'll be a link for you to join the class. It's free. You've got nothing to lose here at all. And something else that I think is important to say, perhaps you haven't been through breast cancer, but you can totally relate with that feeling of being exhausted. And perhaps you're relating to being in survival mode. Maybe you're like looking at the list of things that I shared earlier and saying, well, that sounds like me. Then I want you to know that you are totally welcome to join us too. Okay, I don't want to exclude anybody. You are all welcome. So just click around this video wherever you're watching, or you can head over to my website or the blog too. But save your spot, right? Take 60 minutes for you to change your life. I promise you it will be worth it. I promise you it'll be worth it. If we haven't yet met, I'm Karin Del Maestro, your health coach and bounce back expert, and I specialize in helping breast cancer survivors get their energy back, get their life back, and build habits that withstand the challenges of life, health, fatigue, stress, even chocolate cravings. Okay? So dive on in, click the link wherever it is, wherever you're watching, and join us in this class. And I really, really hope to see your name there, and I will be looking out for you in class. Okay? Bye for now, and I'll be seeing you next week, same time, same place, 11:30 for Wellbeing Wednesdays, and 11:30 Eastern time, that is. And next week, we're going to be talking about why you might not know who you are anymore. Okay, so if that's resonating with you, then come hang out with us next Wednesday. Okay, bye for now, guys.